Hello, hello, hello. It is 2 p.m. on a Thursday, which for the first time in this new hockey season is it's a Scouching Live where I am on my own today. We have producer AJ is off doing his real life stuff, which is totally cool by my books. You know, he's allowed to have a life outside of just doing everything I tell him to, which is fine. You know, he's still young and spry. He's got lots to give to the world. By the way, this is a brand new audio setup on my end. So if there are any issues, please let me know. But I tried these things out and sounded pretty good on my end. So just so you know, did some upgrades in the summer. And I think we should be off and running on a good start here. So welcome to Scouching Live. Obviously, today it's just going to be me, as I said. And yeah, we're going to have some fun. I mean, we'll see what happens today. Obviously, there's lots going on. The NHL is going to be getting started before next show, Monday night. Monday night, we're going to be joined by Tony Ferrari. We're going to do a little bit of an overview on the 2026 class together. And when Tony's on the show, it's always a ton of fun. And we love Tony very, very much for his candor and overall, presence, I guess you could say. But anyway, welcome to the show. I'm super, super excited. This season so far has been a lot of fun. I'm assuming, since I'm on my own, I get to do whatever I want. So I'm going to take a couple of minutes because I'm sure the people who are already in here right away are definitely interested in the type of stuff I've been up to on my own time, the things that pays my bills, the things that you get through a Scouching.ca subscription. So I am going to run through a list of all of the players that I have tracked to this point, which AJ probably wouldn't let me do because I'm sure people will be curious. And if you have questions, these are the guys that I would know the most about to this point, especially because I've taken a look at them in detail and was forced to pay attention because I watched them and gathered the data from their performances. And this is in no particular order. Actually, it is, but it's just descending time on ice. So guys who played the most will come first, and then the guys who played the least will come last. Okay, here we go. We've got Yaroslav Fedosiev, Adam Novotny, Verti Svensk, Juho Piparinen, Albert Smits, Nikita Klepov, Laver Gashalov, Ethan Belchets, Doman Christoph Schöngoth, Axel Brungle Larson, Ryan Rubrek, Luke Scherer, William Håkansson, Alexander Ivanov, I think, Oscar Holmertz, Alan Shaiklislamov, Nils Bertholdson, Pavel Denisov, Arseny Ilyin, Ilya Dolgopolov, Adam Golier, Marcus Nordmark, Malte Gustafsson, Logan Stewart, Nicholas Adam Olsen, Alexei Anisimov, Lars Steiner, Thomas Horenko, Mikey Burchild, Ivar Stenberg, Gleb Pugachev, Luka Arko, Victor Fyodorov, Cooper Williams, AJ Francisco, Maddox Dagenet, Adam Nemec, Leonid Sokol, Yaroslav Matayev, Kasper Justavara Karlsson, Samu Alalauri, Xavier Villeneuve, Simon Katalichki, Kirill Buzayev, Romain L'Italien, Dane Bucher, Tommy Blyle, I can't remember. I saw him yesterday, and I can't remember what the commentator said. Viggo Bjork, Nikita Sherbakov, Simas Ignatavicius, Casey Mutrin, Elton Hermanson, Nikita Koltsov, Max Isaacson, Jackson Cover, Carter Hicks, Oliver Suvanto, Jonas Lagerberg-Hohen, and Daxon Rudolph. Actually, Daxon Rudolph should be pretty close to the top of that list. He played a ton in the game that I did today. So I'll just relist. Yeah, he would be number 2 on that list in terms of time on ice. So there we go. That's the list so far. And if you didn't hear it the first time, I don't want to do that again. So deal with it. I'm kidding. If you really want to, you could just ask. And you shall receive, ask for a name. And most of the big names I've taken a look at so far this year, Mathis Preston, I haven't gotten to yet because he hasn't hit my ideal games played threshold, ideally. Jack Hextall's another one I haven't seen in detail yet. I've really liked what I've seen of Thomas Vandenberg, but I don't have data on him. Same thing with JC Lemieux. But otherwise, Piers Mouilly is on the list, but I actually lost access to my Instat account as of October 1st, and they're not responding to my emails. So hopefully that gets sorted out. But anyway, so I don't have the ability to download more games. But in any case, what else do we have in here? Yeah, like Chase Reed. I haven't actually. I have a game of Chase Reed, but I haven't done it yet. But otherwise, most of these guys I've seen and can speak to. So yeah, Carson Carroll's I haven't yet, but anyway, there's a few. I mean, yes. So the first comment, I mean, obviously, and I will also mention that this season, I do really want to do a better job keeping up with the chat as it goes. We're going to try to loosen up the show a little bit, and sort of try to keep up with chat a little bit better, because making people wait until the second half when, you know, who cares about news and stuff anyway? You're here to chat and hang out, and so we're gonna focus on that. And we're gonna try to keep up with chat a little bit better. So if you have anything to say or any questions to ask or whatever, definitely throw it in the chat, and we'll get a little conversation going. You know, it's gonna be fun. Yeah, but before the show, literally as I hit go live, Jackson Lacombe, there was a deal announced that he is signed to an 8-year, $9 million a year contract. That is a bet on a guy who had a good year. I mean, I saw Jackson Lacombe here and there last year, and I will say, like, a very good puck mover, you know, very smart passer, and probably one of the most, like, daring and offensively oriented offensive zone defenseman that was in the league last year. It seems that was also backed up in the data behind his performances last year, which we'll see if that holds long term, you know. But I mean, hey, if he's sort of the number one power play quarterback on that team for the next 8 years, I guess, then $9 million in a couple of years is probably a pretty good deal. The thing that's weird to me about this is that Mason McTavish, guys like him and Marco Rossi and like these guys who do have a bit of a track record seem to not get the same like charity in terms of like, oh yeah, we're willing to bet on you for 8 years. And like, I don't think Jackson Lacombe last year was so much better than a guy like a Mason McTavish on Anaheim, where it was like, oh, we need to really, really grind McTavish down and get a deal that we want. But if you're Lacombe, yeah, we want to. I mean, I guess he's a defenseman. He's a highly regarded one, so maybe that adds more value. But it's, you know, if I'm Mason McTavish's agent, I'm sitting there going, interesting. Interesting tactic and interesting news coming across the wire today. I mean, I don't know off the top of my head if he has the same agent as Jackson Lacombe, or if he represents both people. But in the end, it's a bet. And I mean, look, this is how the NHL is going to work, right? I think we all have to be very, very careful with contracts in the next, like this past off season going into next year. Like, there's a very strong chance that now that Kirill Kaprizov is the highest paid player in the league at $17 million, that we're going to look at Connor McDavid next year at 20, 21. And that would be, I believe, the most expensive deal in NHL history relative to the cap even next year. $20 million on $105 million, I think it'll be next year. But I believe the year after it's going up even more. And I would imagine, you know, unless something horrible happens, the growth in the NHL will continue, because I think it's in its best era like ever, led by guys like Connor McDavid. So, I mean, look, if Connor McDavid, God forbid, Edmonton Oilers fans earmuffs, but if Connor McDavid signs in a place like LA or Toronto or New York or Philadelphia, like a huge diehard hockey market, I would bet about $1 million that the NHL is just going to go vertical, because you know for a fact that every U.S. broadcaster and the NHL themselves are going to be plowing down the door for Connor McDavid to be front and center of the National Hockey League's public, whatever. Whether he wants to or not, that's going to be the job. So we'll see what happens there. But for me, yeah, like, but very quickly that $20 million will be still very expensive, but as a percentage of the cap, I really wish we would think more about things in that way. It would make a little bit sense. Yes, or Chicago. I agree. Yes, he may go to Chicago, and honestly, that would be pretty cool. I think that would be pretty wild, and I think they would have more than enough money to make it happen. So yeah, Chicago. There's another one. We'll see how fans of the National Hockey League take that news if it were to happen. But nonetheless, you know, it'd be cool. But you know, I gotta stay. You know, I got to stay positive for Edmonton Oilers fans that he's going to stick because you just kind of have to. I mean, I don't know. But at the end of the day, it doesn't matter. We're not talking about Connor McDavid. We're talking about Jackson Lacombe. And so, $9 million next year is less than 10% of the cap, which, is a chunk. But, you've got guys like Kaprizov up at, I think, 19. And Alex Ovechkin, when he signed his deal in 2008, I think was 18%. And that was $9.5 million back then. So, you're looking at a pretty sizable growth in the salary cap of the league, and contracts are going to get more expensive. And yeah, if I'm an agent and you want to call me about locking a guy up for 8 years, then you're going to have to pay. But just as I say that, there are also other players who are getting locked up long-term for much less money, which I don't know. It's a little bit crazy, but what is Brock Faber's contract? Is it 8? Is it $8 million? And that was signed not that long ago. I'm going to Google it. Well, by Google, I mean go on Puckpedia and search. But yeah, okay, $8.5 million. And this is which year? This is year number 1 of it. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Year 2. So he's in year 2 of this deal at $8.5 million. And, obviously didn't have the best year last year, but I would say better track record than a guy like Lacombe for a top-end NHL defenseman. But nonetheless, we're here. So yeah, wild stuff, crazy stuff. And, it's a bit of a jarring era. And so, yeah, we'll see how that works out for the Ducks, but they have the money. And the only thing I think is that it's very interesting how the dynamics are different between, especially on the same team, the situation with McTavish and the situation with Lacombe. It's maybe I'm crazy, but that seems a wild dichotomy. Anyway, what's cracking? I mean, not a whole lot, honestly. I'm not kidding. No, busy, hard at work, working through the list, going through all the players I possibly can. It's almost time to circle back on some of the first guys I saw this year. So that would be like Fedosiev, Schmidt, Piparinen, all these guys are the two guys playing in Finland are playing pro hockey now, which I'm very excited for because those two guys especially, I thought they looked way too good to be in the junior league in Finland, and so it didn't take very long for them to go to the men's league. And I believe at least Smits is playing quite a bit for Jukurit. So yeah, we'll see how it goes. But yeah, I mean, other than that, not a whole lot. Watched Survivor last night. That was a pretty crazy episode, but I won't spoil it for anyone who hasn't seen it. Unless there's enough audience interaction where I will spoil it, and I'll say the word earmuffs. We had a pizza party here last night at home for Survivor as well. This is technically a pizza party. I have some pizza crusts over there. So this is my afternoon pizza party with all of you. So if you also are eating pizza, then awesome. But if not, I'm sorry, I ate the last few slices. So we can't, oh well, but we can still do the party part. We're doing the party part. Also, today's Pips puzzle, New York Times puzzle, Pips puzzle, made me want to vomit and throw my own head in the garbage. That was a big pain. But I did it. But I was not very proud of my time. The hard puzzle, by the way, in case that needs clarification, but that was a real pain. I like this one. It's cool that the NHL Network is showing Keevan and Potter's season debut. Yeah, I mean, look, the Gavin McKenna game coming up where they're playing ASU. It's going to be a fun one, man. Like the Penn State team is a lot of fun as they are, and I mean, obviously ASU. Fans of the show will know why people might be excited to see the ASU team, and Ben Keevan there is going to be a lot of fun. And it'll be very, very interesting. I'll be definitely watching and seeing how things are looking. So, yeah, definitely got to see. I mean, obviously now I'm the Gavin McKenna at 4 guy. I got a message from someone. Someone said, "Oh, like I was at work," and someone said, "Oh, that Scouching guy has that Scouching guy has McKenna at 4." And the person also then like didn't know who Tynan Lawrence was. He had never heard that name before. So that's where we're at. And so, look, I mean, it's, we're all having a good time at this point in the year. I'm not too seriously, entrenched in things, but it's been fun. It's been a fun couple of days. And I mean, I got a lot of comments on TikTok and YouTube about my stuff being rage bait. But, I mean, it's not like there's a 15-minute explanation why I came to the conclusion that I came to that's, relatively detailed and nuanced. It's not like there's something like that in the show. But, hey, I'll take it. It makes people watch, and people can think what they want to think, but I'm over here busting my butt, and I cannot wait for the NCAA season to get going on a multitude of fronts for many, many different reasons. So really looking forward to that game, and I'll be watching it. Do you think Columbus has any interest in the Devils goaltender Nico Dawes? Dawes in the third for Chinikov? I mean, I don't know. Who's in net? Like, Columbus, they lost Tarasov. Is it do they still need? I think they still need a goalie, right? Like, they've got Merzlikins and Jet Greaves, which, I mean, Greaves had a pretty decent handful of games last year, but I mean, I don't know if that's enough to go in. And I mean, I don't know. I don't think Nico Dawes is really the key to success there. Like, I feel like if you already have Greaves and Merzlikins, I don't know. I mean, Chinikov, as far as I know from last I saw, wanted out in Columbus. He was kind of not feeling it anymore. So we'll see what happens there, but I don't think Nico Dawes would be like a solution to their problems. But if you're getting a draft pick for Chinikov, I guess a third is okay. And but I don't think that goaltender is like going to save your franchise, because I'm pretty sure he's had a rough couple of years. First obscure prospect question of the season. Thoughts on Adam Anderson of Lexington? Yeah, I like him. I've seen him. I saw him over the summer. He caught my eye a couple of times. And the game I did of Jonas Lagerberg-Hohen, he was a line mate. I think he was the center on that line. And he's good. Like, he's good. I think he's a good, big, sort of puck possession heavy, like, skilled center who may not be the fastest guy in the world or the most offensively oriented guy in the world, but could be an intriguing guy to keep an eye on. I haven't tracked him yet, but he is on the list eventually when I get there. So I will take a look. I will take a look at him and at some point have some better information on him. But since the offseason, he's been a guy sort of in the back of my mind of, okay, like I feel like this is kind of where, something might be as like a depth maybe guy, but we'll see. Because he is fun. He's a fun, big, possession-oriented guy who I just don't have a ton of detail on right now. Yeah, I mean, apparently Tony is famous in these circles for his hatred of Quebec and Finland. He's a notable, newsworthy individual in Finland these days. But I mean, look, what I am gonna do on Monday, and Tony, maybe he's watching this or gonna watch it between now and Monday, but I am gonna grill him about Finland this year, because this season I think is a pretty darn good looking year for Finland and hockey players coming out of Finland. There's a multitude of them in my first round and more in the second round. So yeah, we're feeling pretty good about Finland this year. And if Tony isn't, then he's wrong and stupid and a loser. And that's all. That's all I have to say about that. Quebec, I don't know. I've seen a few Quebec guys this year. There are some good ones though. But like. It's Villeneuve for me. I really like what I've seen of Yegor Shilov, but he's not from Quebec. I did a Lars Steiner game today. He was all right. Maddox Dagenet is intriguing, I guess. I like Cameron Chartrand. He's pretty solid too. There's some stuff going on out there. And in Quebec, there's some stuff. I have to ask, Brian, oh boy, if you've had a chance to see your Team Scotch favorites. Yeah, we love Scotch here. Koblar and Nancy and how they've done so far this season. Koblar in the SHL right away is quite surprising, and I watched a little bit of him in preseason and did not think he looked particularly ready for SHL hockey. I will take a look though, because I know he scored a goal in the SHL, which is great. Good for him. But wait, is this from this? This is not it. This is from last year. Yes. Okay. My mistake. Sorry, I'm pulling up the wrong document here. Okay. Yeah, I mean, I haven't seen North Bay yet this year, I don't think. I haven't seen that much of the CHL, honestly. I'm still working my way through that. I started with them on Monday this week. But yeah, I mean, I also, by the way, both of those players are not on Team Scouching because Toronto drafted them before I was going to pull the trigger on them, which I'm not sure how to feel about that. But let's see. Yeah, I mean, oh boy. Okay, so Harry Nancy is already what? So he's got 4 points this year already in 3 games. What did he have last year? Like 12? Something like that. Like not very much. Let's take a look. Oh, 23. So, he's on pace for 89. I'll take it. But yeah, and also he was barely eligible for last year's draft, right? Like, we'll see. I mean, look, like we said on the show on Monday, if it makes me look smart, it's correct. If it makes me look smart, it's right. It's accurate information. And Harry Nancy, after 3 games with that much production and on pace for 89 points, we're liking that. We like that. We're taking it to the bank and calling it a day. Alrighty. Any thoughts on a change of scenery for the young defense candidates the Flyers should pursue for trades? Is Nemec available given the Devils signing Hughes? You know what? It's funny. I'll say this, and Devils fans, I love you, but I will never ever forget coming after me for saying you don't need Logan Cooley because you already have a lot of centers, and you drafted defensemen, and now you have too many defensemen that are kind of like him, and now you have to either bench him or put him in the minors again or ship him elsewhere. So the logjam you thought was there actually became a different logjam when you went the direction they went. But I mean, look, I think with Simon Nemec, I would really not want to trade him if I'm the Devils. Like, I know he's not the happiest camper in the world, and I feel like with the Flyers, I don't know if he's the type of defenseman they really need because they've already got Sanheim, they've already got York, they've already got Drysdale. Like, the rest of that group, the more defense-oriented guys, I don't think Nemec is that. I think he's going to be a detriment in that area, which he definitely was last year when he played. And so I feel like unless you want to really lean into you outscore your opponents, which I don't think Florida is really built to do, then maybe you do it. But I don't think Nemec is the right character there. I mean, in terms of the other thing too is it's tough at this point in the year to just sort of pinpoint, who's on the outs. I mean, considering that one of the names on here is like Adam Yinning and like Nick Seeler, to me, there's room there for like a clever waiver wire pickup before the season starts on, those like number 7 guys that get moved off of better teams and they just don't make the team at the end of the camp. And you might find some value in guys like that maybe here and there, but I don't know who exactly that would be. Because in terms of like young defensemen that are sort of on the outs and, not really coming along as maybe intended or whatever, like I'm going to see if I can find something in my little database here for some maybe the older guys that are, like defense. Yeah, like defensemen. Let's filter for defensemen and do this and let's see who's available maybe. As an NHL or AHL or AHL, NHL. Here we go. Let's see. Yeah, like maybe a Carson Lambos, but it seems like he might make the team. David Spacek in Minnesota, maybe a guy that I sort of poke around on. Yeah. I'm just flipping through these guys. David Jiricek's not going anywhere. Tristan Luneau's not going anywhere. Yeah. Like maybe Vsevolod Komarov out of Buffalo has been okay. I doubt Isaiah George would be available out of the Islanders. It seems like they want to use him. So, yeah, I don't know. It's going to be tough because I feel like a lot of these guys' teams are still curious about what they can bring to the table. And there's not a whole lot here where I look at and go like, yes, this is like Noah Warren maybe. Like I watched a bit of him in preseason and maybe he's just a guy that might not fit in with the Ducks, but maybe I feel like with what the Flyers might need, he could be an interesting experiment if he's coming along kind of cheap. But other than that, I mean, I don't really know, especially realistically speaking, who would be available. I mean, also, like, keep in mind too, I mean, I don't think the world of this kid, but like Oliver Bonk might be an interesting guy that could develop into kind of what I think Philadelphia needs. But we're still, I think, a little bit of a ways away from that. I guess since you've seen him, Logan Stewart thoughts. I like him. I liked what I saw of Logan Stewart. He is, I mean, he's a center who's a little undersized, but you can't really fault the work ethic that he's got. He's a really high pace and sort of high energy kid. I like watching him play, like, and he's a guy who I think when you're watching the NTDP is one of the small handful of guys that like really pops, you know, on the rush and chasing down loose pucks and making plays quickly below the goal line. Like, I think that that's something that he does quite well, which is a good thing. You know, obviously we'd like to see that. But yeah, I mean, I it's with him, it's like, you know, it's the same barometer with smaller guys, right? Like, are they gonna at the NHL level be able to overcome the hurdles that are in the NHL for guys that are that size, especially if they're centers? Like, I could see him being a winger, especially with pretty much how good and solid he was on the forecheck. But this is a guy where I have him ranked right now. I don't remember where. I think in the second round. Yeah, like late second round at the moment. Right. Like at the moment, late second round is one to sort of keep an eye on, check back in on maybe in a little bit and see where he's at, because I like what he brings to the table, and I could easily see him being a guy that goes fourth round or something and probably maybe is a second round valuation type guy. But I'm not like, that's, you know, that's only because I feel like people might overcorrect because he's a smaller guy, but the energy level and the intensity, I think, is something that he can maybe work with and move forward with. But in terms of, like, I feel like he's the type of guy where you're going to need him to be able to consistently really generate some good offense. And on his own, I'm not sure it's quite there yet, but I really enjoy watching him. He's one of the more fun guys to watch with that team. Yeah, a huge amount of Eastern Europeans this year. I mean, they played first, right? Like, I can only track who's been playing, and I don't really like doing teams or guys first, second, third games of the year unless I really can't help it. Usually like 4, 5, 6 is kind of where I get involved, and those first hit in Finland and Russia. And I'm not super cool with like ranking a bunch of guys that I don't have detailed information on yet. There's a few in here that I'm feeling pretty comfortable about as of today, that I haven't tracked yet, but time will tell, right? We'll see. But yeah, I mean, it is a lot of Eastern Europeans, but it's also because that there are some pretty good ones, right? Like, there are some really intriguing Eastern European players that I think, you know, could be interesting to take a look at. Like, Sherbakov has been pretty good. Fyodorov has been pretty good. I like Fedosiev. I have him still on the watch list, but I can't say that every Russian has like been mind-blowing and will stay super high on the list. But yeah, so that explains that, right? Like, and there's a bunch of CHL guys that in the next couple of weeks I would imagine will be on that list as well. And I mean, assuming I get access to my video account again, but you know, knock on wood, you know. Did you get a chance to check out Kindle's preseason game against Detroit? I did not. All I need to see is that the stat card makes him look good. That's all I need to see. And that's it. So I assume that he is good and the greatest hockey player to ever exist. But I mean, look, it's one game and it's a preseason game, but I'll take it, you know? And I don't know. Again, like, this is why, this is kind of why I do what I do, right? Like, Penguins fans freaked out, right? Like, my Penguins recap, like, people were like, I feel like I'm going to jump off a bridge. Like, I'm glad that you like him, but this feels insane to me. And I'm, you know, but I watched a lot of Ben Kindle last year. I was on that bus, like, from the CHL Top Prospects game, or the CHL Prospects game against the US, that 2-game series, I thought he looked outstanding. And at I think it might have been like 2 weeks before I got a text from someone being like, have you checked out Ben Kindle yet this year? And I went, I don't know. Like, I think he's a fine player. He's like, I'm curious what your data looks like on him. So if you haven't tracked him yet, do it and let me know. And I did, and I texted him back and I went, yeah, this kid's incredible. like this kid is really, really good. And yeah, I mean, him and Ville Koivunen, I think, are very much cut from the same cloth in Pittsburgh, and those two guys are so Kyle Dubas coded. Like, it's not even funny. And so, yeah, I mean, I called it at the draft. If you want, you can go back to the draft-a-thon from this year that Kindle would go to Pittsburgh at one of those picks. And one of the other guys I thought they might go and get was a guy they drafted later in the first round anyway. So that's cool. But, yeah, I mean, look, if I'm a Pens fan, I'm excited about Ben Kindle, rightfully. Obviously, best player in an NHL preseason game is a small step, and it's not a be-all, end-all. But, I mean, yeah, he's a good player. He's a good player. And yeah, I don't know. We'll see how it goes with him, but go team go, you know? But yes, extremely Kyle Dubas pilled player there, and definitely a Wes Clark coded player that yeah. Those I'm starting to figure out a little more the more I go on here. And the more I see Kyle Dubas and Wes Clark in a driver's seat together, the more I start to pick up on kind of what they're really interested in as a player. Just look at Easton Cowan in Toronto, basically. What's your oh my God, nerdy question. What's your favorite stat to track? That's a good question. I mean, it's a hard one. It's a tough question because it's like your children. I love them all equally. No, I'm kidding. They're all garbage. Actually, they're just all terrible. I mean, look, I do. Man, yeah, I don't know. I do like the fact that I now have added the defensive zone cycles a player faces and the number of those defensive zone cycles that they themselves end. That's been really handy. Like, I think tracking the defensive value of a player for me has been much more apparent in the last couple of years. I think a good example of that last year would be like Brady Martin. Like, I don't think I would have turned on Brady Martin positively as much as I did over the course of the season if I just went off of the on-puck offensive data that he had. Now, I didn't agree with him being a top 5 pick, but I do see the appeal of a player like him in that range of an NHL draft. And especially because of how much he racked up those defensive metrics, and they weren't just him throwing his body into everyone else and trying to take everybody's head off. You know, he was a good hitter and a good physical player, but just a good defensive player in general, which is good to know. But I mean, the offensive threat metric I have, it's always fun to watch that get cranked up. You know, guys throwing slot passes, seeing if if they're completed, you know, going to the net, you know, attacking the middle of the ice. You know, that's where you want to be, right? You know, a lot of guys, I like Lars Steiner, for example, today didn't really drive much in the offensive zone at all in the game I did, but the transition data on him and the energy and the speed in his game are definitely there. It's just, you know, how do you value a guy who, you know, gets a pass in the neutral zone, races across the offensive blue line and dekes through a guy, but then just pops one on net that gets gloved down from outside the faceoff circles, right? Like, cool, you know, and I think he did that like 6 or 7 times and whatever. But, you know, so it's like, on one hand, there are some areas where it looks really good, but then when push comes to shove, you're trying to score goals. And so finding the guys that do that reliably and the guys that don't and how they do it is definitely very, very intriguing. And it's also a big reason why I just don't believe that there's a way to boil this sport down to one metric of like, here's what the player's value is. Like, I just don't think that's physically possible to do it in a way that is, you know, truly indicative of like player quality individually. I think it's a much more holistic exercise. And stuff like this, like the question you asked is very simple, but the explanation has become very complicated, because it's like there are things I enjoy seeing happen, but there's a lot more that goes into it that I kind of like I did a Dax and Rudolph game today, and I'll tell you right now, I did not have a good time. His data, like, I'll show you right here, 1 second. I'm assuming everything will work properly, but let me flip over here. Yeah, this works. So like if I pull up Dax and Rudolph, like all the data here, if you're unfamiliar, like it's generally pretty good, all things considered. But I don't buy it with him. I really don't buy it. I can't look at the data and go, look at this. This is why I don't buy it. It's only really explained through video. And so it's why I also am very, very cautious about tracked data and using data in this work at all to be definitive or anything. But I really was not down with the game that I saw of him today. It just, like, the issues were very much sort of like just the way that he plays. It's I'm the way that I kind of saw it was he was just very like lackadaisical and just sort of like, the puck's coming to me, I'm just gonna pass it over to someone else. I'm not gonna pressure the guy super hard, but I'll get my stick in the way, or I get the puck in the offensive zone, may as well just put it on net, right? Like he shot the puck on net like 8 times from the point in a game. And one of the times or 2 of the times it went right into shin pads and he was facing a 2-on-1 coming the other way. And he hacked and slashed at the guy's feet enough one time that he lost control of the puck. So like in some of the data, it looks good in certain areas, but in others it's, I just don't really know how to cut it in a certain way where I can go, yeah, I don't buy it. And here's why. It's more of a, you have to look at this. So anyway, but that's neither here nor there. We're not here to talk about that guy, unless you really want to. But yeah, so interesting question, very complicated answer, but that's how I roll. That's how this works. That's what I do. Yeah, I saw that Daniil Gushchin was on waivers. Yeah, I mean, look, the problem is that Gushchin, whether you like it or not, NHL teams are not going to put a guy like him in the bottom 6, right? And I don't think even he wants to be down there. So if he doesn't at least earn a top 9 job with a spot on a power play, like, he's not going to play. Now, I am a little bit surprised that a team like Colorado isn't running with him. Like, I feel like if I'm the Colorado Avalanche, he kind of plays into the sort of, like, when you look at the players they've acquired and the overall style of play that their best players play, if you want to feed into that, a guy like Gushchin sounds like a fit. And you could say the same thing about Gavin Brindley. And I've heard quite positive things about his play in the preseason. But, I mean, look, maybe it's one of these things where it's like we don't want too much of the same thing. Whether you agree with that or not, it is what it is. I don't know. I hope for the best for a guy like Gushchin, because if it were me, if it were me, he could easily play in my bottom 6, and I would just talk to him and be like, look, man, like, you got to make every minute count, but your job is more going to be about using your speed and your skill and everything to just like facilitate the game for others. And if you can score, that would be great. But like, your job right now is going to be a little bit more limited, but like, if it's more than that, that's great. Right? Like, but I'm going to give you a run and see how it goes, because I agree. Like, someone commented later that he looked pretty good in San Jose. I agree. He just isn't a fit for what San Jose kind of seems to want to do these days, really. And they also have a lot of skill in their top 6 already, and it just wasn't going to work there. Now they got Oscar Olausson in return, which who knows? But I mean, look, yeah, it's an uphill battle for a guy like Gushchin, because he hasn't shown yet that a top 6 job is his, and those kinds of things aren't often given for right or wrong reasons. Those things aren't given away. So We'll see what happens, but I get the feeling that if there's an injury or something, he's going to get a call up pretty quick, because I've seen him in the AHL more times than I need to, and I don't know what else he's supposed to do down there to really sort of earn a look in the NHL that's pretty long and solid. But we'll see. Yeah, and Olausson. Okay, so yeah, Olausson's already been waived. So a guy for guy trade. But I mean, look, if you look at AHL value, I know which one I would want. Belchets versus Rubrek. Ooh, yeah. So I did a game of Belchets and I did a game of Rubrek, and I've watched more tape of both of them. I've seen Belchets more times than I can tell you over the last 2 seasons. And I've seen him live a couple of times. Okay, I will say I like Belchets more. He's an 08, so he's a little bit younger. There's a little bit more runway. Not a huge deal, but it's a factor. But the thing I liked about Belchets is his ability to sort of sniff out open space off the puck and sort of be a more active player in transition. And he seemed more... he seemed to have better awareness, like game awareness and situational awareness. And, you know, I still think he is a limited player, right? Like Ethan Belchets is a fascinating player because I think there are some things where he's gonna be an NHL player. Like the way that he plays, it's gonna work, right? Like there is a level of relative certainty that he can ball out in the NHL doing certain things. But if your expectation of him is Eric Lindros, I think you're setting yourself up for something that he just is very far from, right? Not saying it's impossible, but there are limitations in his game. And he was playing on a line with Ethan Garden and was it Bexultan Makish, the Kazakh kid they brought over? I think that was the line. And that trio, it was JC Lemieux. It was Lemieux centering Belchets and Garden. Makish was in and out, I think, too, during that game. But that line worked really, really well, right? And it was a big eye-opener for me watching Lemieux in that game. The energy and the quicker. He was a very quick playmaker, which I love to see. Like, he just kind of always sort of glued the game together really well on both sides of the puck, which is something I really value. Belchets, though, worked off of that really, really well, right? Like, if you hit Belchets with a pass and he's already in the neutral zone, he can find ways to move the puck around opponents, navigate into the offensive zone, and try to make something happen, unlike a lot of big guys. He's got a really, really good shot as well. And there's a lot to like about him. And I came away from that game liking him more than I expected. But again, it's like a limitation thing, right? Like, he's a big, heavy skater. And I think he's like, I feel like when he plays a physical style of hockey, he's only really doing it because someone's telling him to. Like, it doesn't seem like his natural sort of state of mind. Whereas a guy like Lars Steiner, who I watched today, he seems like he's just like wired to just crush everyone and just battle and doesn't care how big you are. Whereas Belchets, it's like, I guess I'm bigger than everybody, so I've got to throw hits and I've got to do this and I've got to do that. I just don't, it just doesn't really pass the smell test for me. And I think that's just because like he's more of an offensive and skill oriented type guy. Rubrek, I just don't have as much positive things to say. Like, the thing about him that I didn't like, again, that awareness and that game scenario awareness didn't seem to be there. Like, Rubrek just kind of seemed to be more like passive, sort of floaty. I know my assignment. I know where to be. I'm. Hit me with a pass, I guess. And I'll see what I can do. Get me the puck in the offensive zone, and I'll score. Right, like those kinds of things were. I didn't really see it as much with him. There wasn't even like that much of a physical edge to him. He just seemed to sort of, like we just mentioned, Oscar Olausson, like there seems to be a little bit of that to him, to me. Like, I remember Olausson in the OHL being sort of a more transition-oriented, passive, sort of some skill, but like not engaged all that much type player. And, kind of got away with the skill if he had the room and time and space and all of that stuff. But is that really projectable? Is that really worth a first round pick? Like for Rubrek, there was a bit going on there that I was curious about, and maybe I just didn't see a great game out of him. But I've kind of always felt that way about him, like watching him with a guy like Kevin He. I feel like you take Rubrek away from Kevin He will make someone else a good producer, but Ryan Rubrek would not be as good a producer without a guy like Kevin He, right? Like that's kind of my vibe about him, and that's kind of my belief. So I don't know if that's out to lunch or not. But I remember I did both of those guys in the same day, and I am pretty comfortable saying that I liked Belchetz more. The way people talk about Viggo Bjork reminds me of Cole Reshny. Is that way off? No, I think you're barking up a similar alley. I think Reshny was a little bit better at like fending off pressure and like the grind of the game. I think he was a little bit better, but in terms of like playmaking ability and skill, in terms of like pure skill level, I think Bjork brings more to the table. And I think he's got a little bit more, I want to say creativity, but like imagination. He's got a little bit more imagination playing the game, whereas Cole Reshny doesn't seem to overthink a whole lot, right? Like I think that's a lesson for Bjork that he's kind of working on. I haven't seen him in a little while, honestly, so I don't know what's shifted since his last little bit in the SHL. But I think with him, it's like learning how to be not the fastest guy on the ice as an undersized player and make plays quicker and do all of those things and keep it sort of a little bit simpler, and knowing that like an extra stick move or an extra half second on the puck can be the difference between a defensive zone breakout and a defensive zone turnover, like those types of things. And that's a good environment to learn it in the SHL. That's the type of thing that I think he kind of is working on, and Reshny I think was a little bit better at, but I think I still would say Bjork is more interesting and more valuable. But I again, both players, I love watching both players. I adore Cole Reshny to death. I think the world of him, and he's a guy that I just always loved to watch last year. It's just going to be a matter of like those smaller guys. Like it wouldn't surprise me to see Viggo Bjork be a guy that NHL teams kind of go, yeah, but I don't know, right? Like they might look at him and, a guy and might be a more of a mid first round pick because of the size and the skating, and like it's not bad, but I think the bar in their minds for a guy like that is really, really, really high. And rightfully so, but it might be a little too high, and with Reshny, I think that he kind of went around where I felt like he should, where you're managing the risk on him a little bit. And I mean, look, I am happy with him going where he did. I think that's all good. Yeah, working out the kinks in the preseason, exactly. Is Coots going to make the Canucks opening night roster? It's been fascinating following along with that. I mean, I know that Vancouver likes him a lot. I know that he is popular, and I like him too. He was a guy, he went right around where I had him ranked. It was right around where I felt he was the right pick, especially once Victor Eklund went off the board. He did go right after him. I need to double check. Bear with me. But yeah, I mean, right. Yes, he did go after Eklund. Okay, there you go. Yeah. Oh, no, he went one pick before Eklund. Okay. Ooh, I thought Eklund went 13. I thought it was 13-14 that the Islanders had, but they had 16-17. Anyway, I mean, look, I see the appeal of a Braden Coots. My thing on him was last year, like, you can't fault the motor, the hard work ethic, the 200-foot impact. Like, he plays a style of play that I think would be endearing to an NHL coach. And I think a good NHL coach recognizes that this guy just plays a team first game. He glues a line together really well up the middle. Would I expect him to be a full-time NHLer this season? Probably not. I don't think. I wouldn't expect him to be a very productive one. I would want him to go back to junior and take a step offensively and produce more than he did, even though last year he did produce quite well relative to his team's offense. Like his offensive game was a little underrated. But at the end of the day, I like Coots a lot. I can see very easily how he would get rewarded with a stint in the NHL, a little cup of coffee, as they say. I could see how that would be in the cards. But in terms of like a long-term stick there, and I feel like Vancouver has a little bit, a good enough amount of depth that with or without Coots, like they'll survive. And Coots can sort of, like I could see him getting like a Jet Luchenko, way to go, kiddo, great job in camp. Let's see what you can do in the NHL. And after a couple of games, the team goes, now you know what it's like. Let's see what goes, let's see where things go. Do you think Oscar Hemming sneaks into the top 10? That's one of the guys I have not really seen a whole lot of yet. I think top 10 is a little ambitious. Like I'm looking at my top 10 here, and I would say like 7, 8, 9, 10 are all up for grabs. I would say I'm not confident at all about who would be part of that group. I have a pretty good idea of a bunch of guys that could be. Hemming is not part of that group. I feel like he is much more of one of those like offensive zone finisher types, but I mean that in a good way. Like he's got a wicked shot. He's big. He's heavy. Like there's a lot to like about him, but I don't know about top 10. Maybe first round. Maybe if after I take a better look at him and see what happens. Is he playing men's hockey? I don't know. Let's see. Oscar Hemming. I don't think he's playing men's hockey yet. Oh, he's in Kitchener. Okay, so I thought he was staying in Finland for some reason. Okay, so he's going to Kitchener. We'll see how that goes. He hasn't played yet, so hard to say. But I could see a late first round pick right now based on what I remember from the Hlinka. I did note him as one of the better players on that team, but I did remember noting guys like Piparinen, Suvanto, definitely Suvanto I noted a lot more often. Who is the other one? It's slipping my mind. Maybe Ala Lowry, he was pretty good too at that tournament, but more in the Oscar Hemming vibe. Oh my God. Why am I blanking on this so bad? The point is there was one more guy who was actually pretty good on that team, and I can't remember his name. Now I need to know. I'm going to look it up. I can't help it. Was it Von Hatalo? I have a game of Von Hatalo pulled that I haven't seen yet, and might have been him. But anyway, neither here nor there. But I'm curious. I'm excited to see him. I think the OHL is a good spot for a guy like that. And Kitchener is not a bad place to be. Cool arena, by the way. Love Kitchener. I love going to Kitchener. It's great. Best media room in the league, which is awesome. But yeah. Or at least from my experience. I haven't gone to every OHL rink, but it's amazing. Yeah, thoughts on the QMJHL prospects in this year's draft? I know Villeneuve is a stud, but who else is out there? So, yeah, I mean, I think there's some good players in the queue, right? And I think of all of the changes of all three junior leagues in Canada, I feel like the Q is the one that's going to benefit the most from the rule changes with the NCAA because all those kids in New England can go up there. And I feel like the Maritimes are going to get a huge boost because, I mean, I don't want to like thumb my nose at Quebec at all because I love going to Quebec. It's a great place. But like if you're a kid from Massachusetts, like, do you want to go to Rouyn-Noranda to play hockey or do you want to go to Moncton, right? Would you like to go to, Cape Breton or Halifax, or do you want to go to Quebec City, right? Like, I feel like one is more desirable than the other if you are from like some random town in Vermont and you've never heard a word of French in your life. Not saying that's universally true. I'm just saying I can understand it. So I could see how the maritime teams might be able to, weasel their way into getting some pretty good talent to come up from America that maybe wouldn't want to go to Quebec. Maybe I'm wrong, but I could see it. But that being said, I think they do benefit quite a bit from all of this stuff, right? Like, I mean, Villeneuve is obviously the guy. I love Xavier Villeneuve. I think he's fantastic. I think he's got a ton to give, and I think he's one of these guys that he is going to be as successful as he wants to be, right? Like, I think some of the stuff he does is, you know, you kind of want to just like shake your head and go like, what are you doing on this? Like, what's going on? Like, the decision making is a little bit like, I get it, you're good, but like, you know, that kind of vibe. But it's the type of thing where it's about balance, right? Like with him, it's not so much about like frustration yet. It's more about like, all right, let's find out where the limits are, right? Like, let's find a way to make things a little bit more reliable, a little bit more dependable, you know, and a little bit more, you know, successful more often. Because he's the type of player where, you know, he might make one mistake and everybody will notice and everybody will hold it against him, right? Like, because he plays with that flash. It's the William Nylander, you know, paradox, right? A really talented player with a ton of skill, loves to have the puck, loves to try things, really productive. The numbers on a guy like that are always really positive, more positive than people think, but the reputation comes from the worst moments, right? And it's like, well, look at this fancy pants trying this stuff, and then it doesn't work and it backfires. And I think that type of mentality is a lot of the reason we see NHL teams trend towards defensemen that are nothing like Xavier Villeneuve, right? Like, you know, Lane Hudson may change some minds in the right direction some amount, but I really don't know about like I guess this is the type of player that can actually make it work on a bigger scale than this, because I see a guy like Villeneuve as sort of the next iteration of a guy like that. And so it's really going to be a matter of like the learning curve, the development, the whatever. But to answer the question, because I'm really bad at that, we have, I've got Yegor Shilov really high, at least in the first round. Yeah, so he is in my first round. I really love him. I'm curious to see what he does in the tracked data, though. Like, he's unbelievably skilled and really creative, and I've really, really liked watching him. But the skating, it's kind of a like Nikita Klepov situation where I love when the puck is in the offensive zone, the types of things that they're trying to do, and that sort of Shilov has that like that next level, like, I don't need to make the first play right in front of my face, but I can find multiple options. I'm not just, you know, I can juggle options. I can work off of pressure. I can, you know, protect the puck really well using skill. Like, there's a very practical side of Shilov that I really like from what I've seen. Cameron Chartrand is a defenseman. He doesn't have any points this year, but I've liked what I've seen of him. I thought he was pretty solid and really strong at the Hlinka this year. The one that caught my eye watching the opponent that I need to check out again is Louis-François Bélanger. Now, he's small. He's 172 centimeters, which is about 5'8", 5'9" for you Imperial losers. And so for me, I think Jean-François Bélanger is a lot of fun to watch. I haven't gotten into detail on him, but I just noted him. Same thing with, I don't remember who mentioned the kid from Regina. What's that guy's name? The little guy on Regina who is really, really good. Because I went and watched him after the game, or after the stream on Monday, and he was gross. Julian Mays, that's the one, number 72. He was gross, and he has been very successful on that team. And I spoke a lot about him to some people in private because he is an interesting one. And yeah, so Julian Mays is the big one that sticks out to me as sort of a guy that's caught my eye now that I want to take a look at on the smaller side. I honestly liked Matt Dagenet when I saw him. I think that there's an intriguing skill set there. Like it's like a weird mirror version of like a Belchet's kind of, but like not, I don't know, that's maybe not. Undo, Control Z. It's like, you know, I liked Dagenet because you can kind of easily see what he can do. The guy that he kind of reminds me of a little bit is like a Nathan Gaucher, where Gaucher shouldn't have gone in the first round, and I don't think Dagenet is a first round pick. But the combination of like size, skating ability, forechecking ability, all of those things are good. And at times with him, unlike Gaucher, you see like some skill, like he tries some things where you kind of go, oh, okay. Like he's trying to get through pressure. He's trying to get into better scoring areas. Sometimes he's successful, sometimes he's not. Like I could see Dagenet being a guy that kind of grows this season, and like the second half might be a little bit better than the first half, and he starts learning that he can maybe get stronger and power through these guys a little bit more, because the off puck play, the physical play, the forechecking stuff, that's all really good. It's all really, really good. And I mean, he didn't blow my mind, but I liked him. The other ones on here that I've got, I mean, Lars Steiner is a curious one. I have him penciled into like the late second, early third. Torkel Jennersjo, he hasn't played yet, but he's one I'm curious about. I wasn't huge on Mernieks when I watched him, honestly. Thomas Rousseau is kind of interesting. Kornaev, someone mentioned him in the stream last time, and I watched a bit of him, and he was all right, but I wasn't really like blown away. Oleg Kulobyakin is one I haven't seen with Halifax, but I watched him in junior, like in youth hockey in the US, and I liked him quite a bit as well. Actually, I think it was him. Was he the guy who was on that junior Hurricanes team? So he was on the junior Hurricanes team with Molgachev, who, oh no, he wasn't on the team with Molgachev. That was Adam Israelov. But Kulobyakin was the guy on that team that I was really, really interested in. Israelov has gone to Omaha, it seems. But Kulobyakin was the guy who I was really, really impressed by, and he's off to a good start. So that's a name that I probably should take a look at some point too. But he's been a guy that I've seen quite a bit, and I've liked, at least at the 16U level, for whatever that's worth. Dylan Rossi is an interesting one, but I haven't taken a look at him. Vladimir Karabayev hasn't played yet, but he's one that I have on the list here. Philippe Veilleux, I watched a game where Valdor was the opponent, and Veilleux, a re-entry. I thought he looked really good in that game as well. One of the more surprising ones, I don't think he didn't get a draft pick at all last year, and that kind of surprised me, considering some of the other smaller guys the teams took a swing on late, but maybe second time's the charm. Benjamin Kassadayat is another one that I've kind of been intrigued by, but not blown away. Charlie Morrison is a guy that I liked a lot last year, but he also has not played. So yeah, there's some good ones in Quebec that I'm kind of curious about for sure. What do you know about Caden McGregor? I know that he plays for Peterborough, right? Is that the guy that went first overall? Yeah, Caden McGregor. I mean, yeah, I've seen a little bit of him. Not enough to give you a good answer. And he hasn't played in the OHL yet, so I don't know. But I'm not, I can't give you a good answer on him. Go bug Jordan Millette. Go find him on Twitter and DM him. He loves talking about Caden McGregor. But in all seriousness, I know Jordan had him pretty high on the list at Puck Preps. I don't think he was number one, if I recall correctly. But Cam Warren was number one. But Caden McGregor, solid offensive sort of. I don't know. I don't know enough to tell you one or the other. So we'll see. You can go bug Jordan, though. He loves when people bug him. Do it. I'm really fascinated by Horenko. I watched a men's league game of his last season. Thought he was noticeable with the puck. Yeah, I like Horenko a lot, too. I think Horenko kind of crosses a lot of the same things that... let me think. I'm trying to remember. Let's see. Like he's very much a top half of the ice focused guy. Like I feel like the skating ability kind of limits his 200-foot impact and everything. But the thing I like about him is the sort of pure sort of skill and the way he uses it, and the finishing ability is really good with him. Like I've always been really impressed with him as a pick, and he's in my first round right now. And I do really, really enjoy watching him. He's definitely a lot of fun. And let me see. Like his data in the one game I've tracked on him also was really, really good by and large, especially in the offensive zone. Really, really important transition player as well, at least offensively. So yeah, he drove a lot of really, really good results and definitely a threatening finisher. So I'm curious to see him again. I think that he's one of these guys where I feel like any skating improvements will do wonders. Like anything with regards to increasing his sort of ability to get around the ice, especially as a center, I think he's laughing. So I'll keep a close eye on him. I would not be surprised to see him on the World Junior team for Slovakia this year. I wouldn't be surprised to see a couple of decent young Slovakians on that group. Guys like Nemec, maybe an Oliver Ojigani. I thought he looked really good at the Holinka tournament. Like maybe that's a guy that sneaks his way onto the team. But yeah, Horenko, I would not be surprised. Gollier as well. I liked him too. But Horenko, if I could mash him and Adam Nemec together as a player, I think you'd have a really, really darn good player. But yeah, Horenko's a good one. Yes, I agree with Neil. Like us, please. Please like me. Please like me. When AJ's not here, I feel sad, and nobody likes me. I'm just kidding. Even if they don't, I don't care. Tynan Lawrence comparison. I mean, I'll take a look. I'm also I'm stalling for time while I open a list, because what I generally do in these types of questions is I just go to Elite Prospects and look at NHL players and scroll and scroll and scroll until I see someone who kind of makes sense. Man. The last guy who gave me vibes like him, I would say, is Marco Rossi. And I love Marco Rossi to death, but I think Lawrence is a little bit smarter on the puck and a little bit less like individualized on the puck. But but they're not the same. They're not the same. But like in terms of like the way I feel watching these players, I feel like they're kind of cut from the same cloth. Maybe I need to go back to last season. Because this season it's not in any given order. Let's see here. Braden, not Braden. I don't think it's Braden Point. No. Maybe a Tyler Sagan type vibe. After watching Survivor last night, I don't think I'm allowed to say the word vibe anymore. It's not Macklin Celebrini, I don't think. I think they're very different. Yeah, like Jordan Kyrou, but like more of a better 200-foot player. I don't know, though. He's just like all over the ice and just doing everything and chipping in everywhere and just such a good 200-foot dude. Like, yeah. I mean, there's very little in his game that I don't like. And yeah, like, I don't know, man. Like, he's not as big as Jack Eichel, but like, there's a little bit of that to him. Like just speed and skill and dual threat offense and just an unbelievable sort of overall, just you want him out there as much as possible, right? Like, really good player. Just a guy you want out there, right? But he's not 6'2", right? So does that change everything? Yeah, I mean, Jonathan Toews is everyone compares good two-way centers to Jonathan Toews, right? Like I can't, but someone said this Monday night, and I don't remember Jonathan Toews when he was a draft eligible. I would have been like 16 or 15, and I wasn't nearly as much of a degenerate then in this line of work as I am now. But yeah, I mean, the other thing too to remember, like, and the reason I also kind of am curious about the Jack Eichel thing is that Lawrence is at time of draft, Lawrence would be 10 months younger than a Jack Eichel. So there's also that to consider as well. But I mean, I thought he was outstanding at the World Juniors, or at the World Under 18, or at the Holinka tournament. And I can't wait to see him play this year. 'Cause yeah, I mean, he was excellent. Yes, it was Julian Mays. Yes, I believe it was you, Mr. Wings fan, Wings and Abs fan, who brought him up. But he was fun to watch. As a Penguins fan, what should my expectations be for Kindle, Zonin, and Horkoff? Well, elite, and elite. Three of the greatest hockey players to ever play. No, I mean, I think I think Kindle is a high upside, low downside, like high upside, high downside type guy. He is gonna. I would rather see him as a center in the NHL if ideally possible, just based on how he plays. I think I would say either an extremely good third line center or a really solid second line center for Kindle would be cool. I could see him being a second line winger type thing at the end of the day, but I really like him up the middle of the ice. Like I could easily see him in that, maybe like a Chandler Stevenson, but maybe not as like pacey of a player, but like not the biggest center in the world. I don't think Stevenson's that big. I could be wrong, but maybe I'm talking out of my bum, but I don't know. But yeah, I mean, I think with Kindle, if he's my third line center and I have two good centers ahead of him, I'm having a great time. And a second line center, like I think that's fine. You know, like if it were if all things were equal and it was like Crosby, Malkin, Kindle, let's just zoom back and put Kindle on the 2008 Pittsburgh Penguins. I think you're laughing. I think you're having a good time with that group, but it's not 2008. It's 2025. So, you know, a little bit of a different scenario, but a really good player. The other one you mentioned, Zonin, I mean, again, third line center, but like if Kindle Zonin is your second and third line or third and fourth line centers, like, or you have Zonin on the wing with Kindle would be ridiculous. I think on the third line type thing. I think Zonin has more in the tank than third line material. I think he just is a guy. Like I could see Bill Zonin being a guy that, you know, if you're a really good team, he has his job to do on the first line, like not as a center, but like as a forechecking winger who plays heavy, hard, simple, but effective hockey. And if you're winning a game or losing a game by a goal, you throw him over the boards because you know he's going to move heaven and earth to win the game or avoid losing. Like a guy like that, could he be a first line winger with two elite players and, you know, like a Brian Rust type role? Sure, I could see that, right? Like I could see something like that being in the cards. But I really love him to death. I had him higher than Kindle, but not by much. But I thought the world of Bill Zonin last year, and I think he projects extremely well to the NHL rather than Kindle, who has a huge amount of upside, but I think more downside risk. Horkoff is not my type of guy. I think Horkoff is one of these like pressure absorbing sort of possession, low pace centers who, you know, you pass him the puck. He knows how to position his body to protect it decently well. You know, he's an okay, you know, he can shovel the puck in front of the net. He can grind along the boards. Like your meat and potatoes, bottom six center, I could see. He's big and strong enough where I could see a good face-off guy, penalty kill dude, but just not my type of player, honestly. But it seems maybe, I don't know if this is true, but I wouldn't be surprised if the Dubas and Clark duo had some voices in the room that were like, we need a guy like Horkoff if we have 3 first-round picks. We'll give you your 2, but because Horkoff just does not strike me as a Kyle Dubas-coded guy from what I saw last year. Maybe I'm wrong, but that just is how it feels. Thoughts on Adam Novotny and Vladimir Dravechki? Okay, so yeah, I like these guys. I saw Novotny yesterday, and I thought he was really good. Novotny was remarkably fast, so he's got that in his tank. He's a really fast skater. He can really get moving, and he is aggressive, right? Like this is a guy. I mean, his performance kind of came and went in that game where he was playing with Peterborough. But when he was on, he was really dialed and really good. Like, high energy, intelligent player most of the time, like gets to the right areas, grinds when he needs to grind. He is no slouch, but it seemed like sometimes he just wasn't like focused, that awareness that we were talking about earlier in the show. Like, it kind of came and went. Like, for example, he'd get the puck along the boards in his own end, spin off the boards, and then just kind of just flip the puck on his backhand and to nobody in the neutral zone, when like you can just take a second to look around a little bit. But then there were other opportunities where he would turn off the boards, take a look, and fire a tape-to-tape pass to someone streaking up the ice. Like, it's like sometimes you get A and sometimes you get B. And so if that's something you just have to live with because that's just how he plays, you have to work around that, or you can work on it, whatever. But he is good. Like, he was a good player. I thought that, he was inside driven about as much as I want to see out of a guy like him, but I'd like maybe to see more. But going into that game, I had him pretty high on my list, and I bumped him down. He's still a first round pick for me, but like as of today, but I bumped him down behind guys like, who was he? Well, let me pull it up here. Like he's behind guys like, oh my goodness, where is he? Yeah, like Adam Valentini, Albert Smits, Belchets, like he's behind those guys, but not much farther behind. He's more in a group with guys, from what I've seen, of guys like Shilov and Valentini and Viktor Fyodorov, Verdi Svensk, Juho Piparinen. Like, those guys are kind of around where I have him, in like the middle of the first round type thing. But he's a good player. I like him a lot, and I feel like over time he could improve. That unit that he's on in Peterborough is a lot of fun with Fitzgerald and Matthew Soto. It's a fun line to watch. Fitzgerald is a physical kid who kind of glues those guys together, and Soto is I remember him from a few years back, and he's still the same, just a rambunctious, crazy, wild guy who's all over the ice and bumping and grinding, making stuff happen. And Novotny is sort of the more finesse-oriented, skatey boy. So it's a nice trio. It's fun to watch. Do you have a player comp for Cullen Potter? And would you say he's more likely to play wing? I personally think Potter is pretty clearly a center type guy. I mean, look, I think he played center all year last year, pretty much. Like, almost every game I saw, he was by and large up the middle of the ice. And I think this touches on an interesting point that it's hard to argue, but it's more of a discussion, where it's like, how do you perceive the job of your centers on a hockey team, right? Like, what outline the job that you need your guys to have and be able to do up the middle, right? And I think that there are multiple different reasonable answers. And as long as you sort of build your team and build your systems around your beliefs and your strategy, then it might end up just coming out in the wash if you have the right players in the right spots, right? Like, I look at a guy like Cullen Potter, and I see a guy who thrives in open ice, right? Maybe one of the best skaters in last year's draft that didn't go in the top couple of picks, like in terms of explosiveness, speed, the combination of that speed and the skill level that he has. Those are tremendous foundational building blocks to work with, right? He's not the biggest guy in the world, and I definitely would have liked a little bit more physical intensity here and there. But I feel like the center's job in my books is more off puck open ice focused. Like, you fall back in your own end a little bit. You monitor passing lanes. If your defenseman drives into the corner to muck it up a little bit, you're there in puck support situations, or you're covering the front of the net if both of your defensemen are below the goal line. Like, it's situational awareness like that. And I don't remember Potter getting sort of caught with his pants down in situations like that last year all that much. And considering he was a 17-year-old all season long last year, pretty much playing at a pretty good school, that team in ASU was pretty good. and centering a line, I think that there's a good player there. But the thing is, I feel like a lot of NHL teams would disagree with me on that type of a job for a center, right? I think the big thing people would be curious about and concerned about is face-offs with a guy like him, which I think there's some level of fairness to that argument, you know? But I remember talking to someone years ago who was a video coach in the CHL. And we were just chatting, you know, we were just going over some video because I was curious about like, yeah, you know, behind the scenes, like how do you sort of run these things? How do you study this? Like, what are you breaking down? How do you communicate it to the players? Yada, yada, yada. And he was talking about face-offs and how they think about face-offs. And he basically kind of said like, winning a face-off is important. Like, it's ideal. Obviously, if you gain possession off of a face-off, like, that's great. But even if you have a really good guy in the face-off circle, in terms of like the puck goes towards your team, if you have a weak link on that line, it's gonna go in the opposite direction, right? If you lose that face-off, like, the really important thing, it seems, from the perspective of this person, was what you do immediately following a face-off, right? Like I hockey is sometimes a set play sport, especially off of a face-off, right? Teams really want to have a system implemented of who goes where after a face-off is won and lost, right? So part of the game is like pre-scouting the opposing team's strategy in those situations and building something to counter it. If the other team has a certain thing, you have to know what that thing is and work around it and put your, so in that sense, it kind of nullifies, or at least could nullify, a big chunk of how being good in the face-off circle gives you an advantage, right? Like, and this is what I mean. Like, it's not me saying like NHL people are wrong, but it's just sort of explaining why I see things the way I see them. So it's like there's more to it at center than winning faceoffs. There's more to it than, you know, just being the guy that's standing in front of the net chipping in when your defensemen aren't there. So for me with Cullen Potter, it's like I want a guy like Cullen Potter, even if he is that sort of puck support, off puck focused defensive center in his own end and not the most physically intense guy. I want a guy in that situation who can get the puck from the guy along the boards. You know, the guy's doing the grinding, flip the puck out to him, it squirts out, gets to him, and he's off like a rocket. Like, he is either moving his feet and getting it out of dodge, or head up, turns around, finds an outlet pass, and bang, tape to tape hits it, right? And that's what I mean by like stitching a line together, right? Defensemen to wingers. That's my idea of a center, right? It's why I loved Berkeley Catton so much. Get the puck from the defenseman, scan and be aware of where your boys are, people, and get up the ice somehow, right? Like, that is the goal. That is the ultimate thing that I want my centers to do. And you are responsible for driving the puck through the neutral zone and getting it into the offensive zone. And once you're in the offensive zone, that's the fun part, right? Like, Cullen Potter in the offensive zone, in terms of on paper, I had no problems with him whatsoever. So it's to me, it's a matter of like strategy and just discussing that strategy. Cause like, obviously you can point to him and go, he can't, it's very easy to point to a guy like Cullen Potter and go, you can't play center in the NHL. It's just not going to happen because you're not big enough. Fair enough. You know, like that. Okay. If that's the strategy and that is your viewpoint, okay. But I don't think you're going to get the best version of him. It's the same as Brad Lambert, right? Like, Lambert is not a winger. I don't think he's an NHL winger. He shouldn't be, right? Because it's that sort of, you know, as long as he's got that off puck awareness in his own end, which is I think good enough. And he has the skating ability and the skill to like get pucks moving. I will never forget watching him in Liga at 17 or 18 and the stark differential in how effective he was playing up the middle of the ice with Jyväskylä and going back home to Lati and switching to the wing and needing to play in more of a structured system there. It just didn't feel right. And the numbers reflected that. So I look at a guy like Cullen Potter and I go, I can see why NHL teams didn't want him, right? Because he's tough to put in a paradigm. He's tough to put in a bubble of like, this is your job in the NHL. If you're a typical NHL coded person. But this is kind of why I'm so curious about Calgary, right? Because a number of times in the last 2 seasons, especially, they have drafted just zippity doodah skill offense guys. And the rest, they just kind of go, we'll figure it out, right? Parekh is a huge one. Potter is a huge one. Stockselius is a huge one. There's a number of players that they've drafted. Even the kid that went to Niagara College last year from the OJHL, the twice undrafted guy they drafted out of the OHL, Luke Misa is another one. These are guys that most of them I have seen, obviously not Parekh, but like I've seen them do stuff where I go, man, if you just love to have fun and if you love the exciting side of hockey, the Flames are just leaning into that really hard. And I don't think there's another team in the last 2 years that has really done it to the same extent. And that's what I really appreciate about them. And so it's no surprise to me that Cullen Potter ended up in Calgary now in retrospect, right? Him and Cole Reshny. It was Reshny, I believe, right? Like that went there with him. And like Reshny, Potter, and Stockselius, like, yeah, if you're a team that barely missed the playoffs and those are the 3 guys off your list in the first 2 rounds of the draft, I think you're having a good time. I think you're laughing. And so for me, I'd be very curious to talk to Craig Conroy about that aspect of it, or their scouting director or someone who is in the weeds on that stuff, because it just is apparent to me that seems to be what is going on there. So for me with Potter, like the second part of your question, is he going to be a superstar? I don't think there were that many guys last year in the draft who their ceiling of ceilings was like Wheaties box superstar excitement level hockey player, right? I think Cullen Potter, in the right environment and with the right path from here, another 2 seasons in college, I would say, I think you have a great 21-year-old at that point who can play in the NHL and play with enough speed and skill to, be among the higher names in the NHL, right? Like we look at a Jack Hughes, for example, and I'm not comparing the two as the same, but there is a similar style of play there. And Jack Hughes, when he went from the USHL straight to the NHL, and it's taken a little bit of time, and yes, he's fought some injuries, but when he plays in the NHL, you know why he went first overall. And he is an exciting, exciting player to watch. Even if he's not the most physically intense defensive player at all, you see why he is what he is. And so for Potter, I feel like if Potter played for the NTDP last year, he would have blown the doors off on that team. But I'm glad he didn't. So we'll see where it goes, but I think he does have a huge amount of potential. And I think Calgary's the right place for him. And I hope it's up the middle of the ice, because I see why they might not, but I see guys like Potter as very interesting ideas up the middle of the ice at the NHL, especially if you have a well-coached system of face-off oriented play, right? What happens when you win, what happens when you lose, and you work around that as best you can. But that's a coaching thing. I didn't remember. Someone mentioned Vladimir Trevechkin, and I didn't say anything about him. I mean, I haven't seen him with Brantford yet, but I've liked the skill-first oriented style of defenseman there. Like, he's kind of in a similar range to me as like a Carson Carroll's right now, but I think I like Carroll's a little bit better. But yeah, like skating-oriented, first of all, kind of slender, but like pretty confident and creative and all that stuff. Like, I like him. I was hoping to see him in the SHL this year or something, but it'll be interesting to see him in Brantford. Which players in this class do you describe as Dubas and Clark coded? I knew that question was coming. It's a good question though. JC Lemieux, maybe. Yegor Shilov, maybe. I don't know that many as of right now. It's also still very early. Marcus Nordmark comes to mind as maybe a guy that crosses that sort of Rubicon. Mikey Burchild, maybe, but wasn't really blown away with him. Caleb Malhotra, perhaps, could be one, maybe. I haven't seen Malhotra much this year, but from what I have seen, maybe that makes sense. There's a few candidates. Jack Hextall, that's the one. Jack Hextall is Dubas and Clark coded. That's the answer. There. Done. Jack Hextall. Easy. Forgot he existed, honestly, which is I feel great shame for that because that's my guy. Hextall. How long do you think it'll take for Michael Misa to adjust to NHL action? I mean, I feel like this year will be a learning experience as a whole, right? I mean, look, we're still watching Connor Bedard adjust to the NHL, you know? Like, everybody's different. With Misa, I feel like it might be a similar story to a lot of younger players like Bedard, you know, where they're jumped into the NHL right away. And the NHL in 2025 is extraordinarily hard. It is very different from the OHL, very different. And the schedule, like, I'll say this, right? Like, I think over the last few years as an adult, like, one of the things I've done more is like just sort of like, especially with hockey, right? Like, zoom out, like, take yourself out of professional sports fandom and like put yourself in the shoes of a guy like Michael Misa, right? Just put yourself there and think about going from 68 games in the OHL last year where you're playing 20 minutes a night and you're the guy to 82 games, you know, plus maybe going to the World Juniors, you know, maybe plus like the physicality of that, plus the workout regimens that they're probably making you do, plus if you have to like change your diet habits, like change the way that you eat, which, I mean, look, I don't know what Saginaw does with their players. I'm not saying they don't think about those things. I'm sure they do. But, like, I bet that the resources of an NHL team are a little bit beyond that and a little bit more meticulous and tailored. And I feel like Misa, like, it's a complete lifestyle shift, right? Like, there's a lot to ingest. You know, you become a millionaire, you know, like you're wealthy. You are busy all the time. Like, hockey is like 100% of your life and it is a grind. And then 82 times you go out and might play 15 minutes and it's punishing, right? Compared to what you're used to. Like, that might be like, how long would it take for you to get used to that, right? If he has a bit of a shaky up and down season in this day and age, like, I would not be surprised, right? And it's why also, like, when people, you know, like, sometimes fan bases will be like, oh my God, like, when do we worry about this guy? When do we do this? When do we do that? And it's like, I don't know, man. Like, what's the point in worrying anyway, right? Like, you got to be patient, you know? And I feel like it's a self-fulfilling prophecy, right? If there's public pressure of like, you're not meeting our expectations, if you're not meeting the expectations that have been put on you, then I mean, these guys are trained to in one ear out the other, that stuff, but it's really hard to do that, right? Like, and that, I mean, look, I'm not an NHL player, but like, I get my fair share of people telling me I'm a moron, you know? I get my fair share of it. I've seen it. I'm used to it at this point. But it is still kind of hard to tune that stuff out, so I can't even begin to imagine being 18 years old playing in the National Hockey League as one of the top 17, 18-year-old players in the world, right? That just is a different universe to me. So like the adjustment to that lifestyle and that adjustment to things is definitely something that I'm always trying to be cognizant of and always trying to think about and going like, if it takes him 2 seasons, I would not be surprised, you know? But the thing about Misa is that I trust that he will get there because we've met him. The kid exudes hockey. Like, he loves the sport. He works really hard to understand the sport. Like, he really tries to dig into his own game and figure it out. And you can tell when he's on the ice. He just plays that style of play where if he's not the fastest guy on the ice, he'll figure something out. If he's not the most skilled guy on the ice, he'll figure something out. He's not the most physical guy on the ice, but he'll make a good read and figure it out, right? Like, that type of thing is a good foundation. And I think he's in a good situation with San Jose, where a lot of these other young guys who have been put in the NHL really young, like Will Smith, I'm still surprised that San Jose is giving him as much leeway as they have with how he is as a player, right? Like, in terms of like playing him at center, pulling him into the NHL as quickly as they did, like all of these things. It's like they are willing to give guys a lot of rope. And I think that now is sort of the time where those guys that have done that and gone through that, they're kind of being expected to push the team up the standings a little bit, while a guy like Misa, maybe a guy like Musty, a guy like Chernyshov, over the next little while, become the next Eklunds and Smiths and all those guys, right? So that's what I think is it. I'm not holding my breath for him to be incredible right away. It would be great if he was, because I love watching him play. But I mean, look, if he's a third line center in the NHL and okay at it right away, that's a good start. And I think that anybody expecting guys to come straight into the NHL and be Connor McDavid or Sidney Crosby or Alex Ovechkin, I think those days might be over. Like, I feel like they might just not be a thing anymore because of how much better those third and fourth lines on NHL teams have gotten, how good sports science has gotten, how good understanding nutrition and these things. Like, the NHL has just shot up in terms of modernization and quality, and, you know, God only knows where sort of the AI revolution is going to take sports in terms of sports science, kinesiology, biomechanics. Who knows what's coming, right? With a computer able to ingest every academic paper ever made on this stuff and figuring out little gaps and holes that may be able to be exploited, right? Like, I don't know. So who knows where we're going to be in 5 or 10 years, right? Like, I don't know. You know, I don't know, but it's going to be interesting. And I think Michael Misa, I'm just excited to see him, you know? And I think Sharks fans, if I'm a Sharks fan right now, I'm just pumped because there's so many exciting players on that team now. And they're just so much fun to watch, and I hope they take a big step this year. A step, I should say. But they've done a good job drafting a billion times and adding some good players. So hopefully it all works out. Any tie players worthy of a 7th round lottery ticket? Natsa Yanathorn, is that the guy's name? Is that the guy who is playing on the national team? Yeah, Nachayatorn Yanakorntanapunt, I think is his name. That's the kid who played on the Thai national team last year when they got absolutely obliterated in Division 2B. We don't need to count their 15-1 loss to Georgia, because Georgia, the UAE, it might just be those two countries. They are basically going to Russian hockey players who can play hockey and going, would you like a passport and to leave Russia and play hockey and become a Georgian citizen or an Emirati, you know? And in the Emirates, at least, they can go, we'll pay you $30,000 US to play for the Dubai Mighty Camels. I don't know if I'm a Russian, I'm taking that deal every day of the week. So those national teams are shooting up the boards a little bit. So before you know it, you're going to see UAE guys with the last name Sementsov But all the Georgians, I'll say, are not named Saakashvili anymore, But at the end of the day, no, I don't think any Thai players are going to be getting a look as much as I would love to see it. But I think the best one they've got is the defenseman, that guy, Janakorn Tanapunt, and he is eligible for this year's draft, and But, a guy who might be on the Thai national team for the next 20 years, maybe. And they're a decent group, honestly. Like I know for a fact that Thailand is like putting some good resources into hockey, relatively speaking, of course. Like they're Thailand, so they're starting from, very, very low. But, they're the young teams, like some of the best hockey games and hockey environments I have watched in the last 2 years have been Thailand versus Uzbekistan junior hockey, which sounds crazy, but I'm telling you, you know what? I'm going to go find the game that I'm talking about here. And I'm going to put it in the chat because when you guys have time and feel like it, you should watch it. Was it U20 this year? Yeah, I think it was it this one? Yes, this game. Like, here you go. That game is sick. I'll just say that. It's a good one. All right. Last year, we had he's a farmer and he's a quarterback. What annoying narratives are we going to hear this year? Oh, boy. I don't know. I don't know. I mean, I will say this is not annoying. Okay. I'm just going to say that today, right now, before I say what I'm about to say. But I think that it is a very important thing that Gavin McKenna is very outwards and public about his First Nations origins. Like that is an important story, right? Like the CBC thing that they just put out with him, like with Scott Wheeler and everything. Like I watched it. He's a great story, Gavin McKenna, right? Based on what I said Monday about him, like that's totally separate. My reservations about him as the best player for his age in the world at the moment, set that aside. That's a story you're going to hear a lot, probably his First Nations origins in Canada. I don't know about how much you'll hear about it in the US, but in Canada, it is a big deal. I think it is. I think it's a big deal. And, especially because we just had Truth and Reconciliation Day the other day. For any Americans who don't know what that is, we have now a national holiday where, we're supposed to, reflect and think and research about our tumultuous history with First Nations people in Canada, which is a thing that when I was a kid, you never thought about. And honestly, in Canada, at least in the 90s when I was a kid, the amount of racism against First Nations people was, hard to ignore. So like now having Gavin McKenna like coming along and being very open and having that as part of his story, I think is a great thing, honestly. But in terms of like those storylines of like he's a farmer and really driving that home, I don't know. I don't know off the top of my head right now. I don't know. Maybe something will come up, but I haven't heard anything just yet. so we'll leave it at that. I don't want to make things up about people that I don't know or assume things are said that are not actually said. Yeah, I mean, this is so Ty, the thing you mentioned about Cooley is exactly kind of what I was saying about Potter last year, right? Like if Potter was on the NTDP just like Cooley was at that age, would Colin Potter have had a similar season? And if he did, would Logan Cooley, should he have gone 30th in retrospect? Probably not, And if Logan Cooley went to Minnesota as a 17-year-old instead of the NTDP and played as their a top 6 center on that team as a 17-year-old, would he have had a better season than Colin Potter? I don't know if the answer to that is yes. I feel like the answer would be they would probably be relatively comparable, They would have the same holes poked in their games. They would have the same people poking and prodding away. maybe you'd see a little bit more assist generation out of Cooley, because on Minnesota he might have better line mates that can sort of stick around with him a little bit better than what Potter was dealing with last year. But yeah, I agree. I 100% agree, and that's why I had Potter so high. You know how you pick with Leafs picks? I do that, yes. Is there a player you wish you would have picked and regret the most? That's a really good question. Let me look here. Let me pull up actually my data. Oh, for crying out loud. There it is. Nope, that's not it. There it is. All right. So, weird. Well, I'll fix that after the show, but let me just flip over to this. So these are all the guys that are on Team Scouching here. And I mean, not a lot of guys were really high draft picks, so it's hard for me to like regret not, drafting guys with a given pick. I mean, there's nothing I can do about it, and it's obviously a very sad story, but like Rodion Amirov, what could have been, man? Like that kid was so good, but obviously a first round top 15 pick. I think it's the only top 15 pick that Toronto has had in the last few years. Yeah. And having him unfortunately pass away is wild. But yeah, I mean, like, I think, was it Brock Faber? I feel like Brock Faber was on the board at one of these picks, and I just honestly, he was in a blind spot for me. I hadn't seen enough of him. 2020, like he could have been oh no, I didn't have a chance at him. He went ahead of 59. But like Gushchin in the second round at 59, late second round pick, I'm okay with that. Like that's cool. But I mean, there's also a lot of guys in here who ended up drafted later, like Victor Mancini and Ethan Cardwell, and now you've got Ludwig Johnson in there, which is pretty fun. But in general, like, I don't know, because there hasn't been, like, it's really hard with like mid to late round draft picks to be like, damn, I had a coin flip between these guys and I picked the wrong one. Like that's just kind of being dishonest a little bit. Whereas if it's like a higher pick, like 2021, I've been looking, like, I still love Simon Robertson, and I feel like obviously Matthew Nyes is a better player, but at the time, there's a reason Matthew Nyes was available at the end of the second round. I wasn't the only person who was a little bit underwhelmed with him and thought that he was a little bit limited, but Toronto had done research that I was physically not able to do, and they bet on him and it worked. But other than that, I mean, I feel pretty good about most of this, especially like the last few years, right? Like, I mean, I love Teddy Stiga to death. Lane Hudson is on here, I still think Alexander Pashin, like, maybe he comes back to North America someday because he's been so good in the KHL. Nick Robertson is on here, who at some point is going to be a full-time NHLer and a good one. But yeah, I mean, I'm trying to think, like, I can't, I don't know. It's a really tough question, and I'm trying here to be like clearly as honest as I can. Because like, if it wasn't even a Rodion Amirov, at the time in 2020, it might've been like a Maverick Bourque. Like, I think that was the other highest rated guy on my list. The thing, what I also do, just for reference, like, I will do the same thing in retrospect, just going off the best player available at a given draft pick with other teams. So obviously it would be dishonest for me to go to other teams and go, oh, if I were Anaheim, I would have done this, right? So what I have to do is just go, who was the best player available at that point? Go with it. And those are the ones where I look back and I go, okay, I had this guy too high, this guy. And so there's like 4 or 5 teams where this guy would have been a first round pick, like an Atu Ratu instead of a Logan Stankoven. Like, I had Stankoven, I think, 1 slot behind Ratu, and so a bunch of teams end up with him instead of Stankoven. But I mean, I like Ratu in the NHL. He's a good player, but he's not Logan Stankoven. And I remember watching Logan Stankoven that year in the draft year, and I'm going, this guy is unbelievably good. But I also thought Ratu was pretty good as well. And, but again, this is also another reminder of, like, go off of joy. If one player brings you joy, go for the joy. because Stankoven brought joy. But like that's where I sort of go, okay, like, you know, but I think Reese Jessup said this a while ago, like when he was a public guy. Now he's with Carolina, but I think back in the day, I could be wrong, but I think he said this. The NHL draft is not necessarily about drafting the number one guy on your list all the time. It's about getting as many guys in that top 5 or 10 as you can, right? So for me, like I had Michael Sverchek at like 12 or something last year. Would I have actually drafted him at 12 last year? Based on the market research and what's out there and stuff, like I would be willing to gamble that I wouldn't have to. And lo and behold, he was like a 4th round draft pick, right? So if I go off best player available, then yes, I might end up kicking myself. But part of it is like betting on, okay, if I do go with that crazy out of left field decision, I'm not going to get a shot at all of these other guys, right? And also last year, it wouldn't have been Sverchek anyway at 12. It would have been Cullen Potter. But that's neither, oh no, it would have been Eklund. But that's neither here nor there. You get what I'm trying to say. So at the end of the day, I lost my train of thought. Oh my God. I haven't drank enough water today, probably something like that. Right. But at the end of the day, that's the goal, is you have a list of guys that you really, 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 really like, and you have a decent idea of where they might be available. So sometimes you just don't go with the best player available. You have to think about it with a little nuance and going, okay, especially with like, I've already drafted this player and this player and this player. So do I really want to go with another of this type of player, or do I want to think about this and, you know, something that I don't necessarily have as much in the bank? You know, there's a lot more nuance to it live, which is kind of why I like to do it that way with Toronto, like do it live, you know, whatever. Granted, you know, I mean, with Toronto this year, they drafted Koblar with 60th, and I wouldn't have done that, but I love that they did. I liked Sverchek quite a lot more than I liked Koblar, but, you know, it's like a drat I didn't get him, but I also feel pretty good about the guy instead. That I would have been my guy. Have you watched Otro Leppinen? No. I wonder if that is. Oh, okay. He's like 40 years old. Okay. No, he's 26. I'm kidding. Okay. Well, I mean, I don't know enough about this. But oh wait, no. When this guy did get signed, I watched a bit of him. I'm gonna hold my breath. I could see why you would say he would be a nice fit for the Oilers. Like this kid, he's 26, but this guy, I remember just him ripping shots from the point. You know, but like I do remember the days of, who is that defenseman from Finland? I think Detroit signed him, and he had like over a point per game season in Liga, just an absolute cannon of a shot. What was his name? I forget. Wow, he led the league in scoring last year. That's pretty wild. I forget, and I'm going to find it because I don't want, it's going to drive me nuts if I don't remember. Oliver Kasky, that's the one. Oliver Kasky, this guy was he had his time in the sun for sure. So with this kind of thing, I'm always holding my breath and waiting. Keep in mind when you draft, you should also take into consideration the players you already have in your pool. Yeah, that's true. I agree. Yeah, I think that you should do that as well. Yeah. Yeah. Team Scouching does have no goalies. That is true. We have no goaltenders. But in my defense, I will claim to not know enough about goaltending to really know what I'm doing in that regard. Number one. Number two, you could find goalies. You can find, you don't need to draft that many of them. You can find them. And number three, it's very rare in the draft at the point when it gets to that point where I go, I don't know what I want. I like the guys on my list, but I'm not certain any of them are going to be NHLers, but like, I don't know. When I look at the list of goalies that are still available, I still feel the same way. So it's like, would I go with something I'm much less certain about, which is my understanding of goaltending, or do I go for something where I have seen a lot more of these players and have a lot more information? So it's like by default, I end up going with skaters. And so like, and I mean, I feel pretty good about that because in 2024, when that happened, I went, I don't know, give me Ludwig Johnson. And now he is one of the leading scorers on his National League team, right? After 8 games, he is doing stuff. And he's pretty good. He's pretty good. Yeah, he's got 6 points in 9 games in the SHL. Okay, so he's not the leading scorer, but he is the leading scoring defenseman per game, which is pretty cool. So there's that. So yeah, that's what I'm saying. Is like I could take goalies, but also Toronto has had like 5 draft picks every year, 4. So when am I going to draft a goalie, right? Now this year there's a couple that are kind of interesting that might hit the. But this year I like this draft class quite a bit, so I still might not have any goalies. I mean, my strategy would be just go find some guys in Europe and give them entry level deals, or like Anthony Stolars. Toronto just got him. Like how many NHL goaltenders really are homegrown, developed guys, right? Shesterkin, Jonathan Quick was one. A lot of teams don't do it. A lot of teams just don't bother, really. They take flyers and see what happens. Calgary did it with Dustin Wolf, but he was a 7th round draft pick. I don't know. Now, if I were running a team and I had like a David Phillips type character on my group and his thing was goalies and it was the 6th round and he's like, no, we don't need more wingers. Draft this goalie. I'm going, okay, cool. I will take your word for it, mister. And then you go from there. But for me, yeah, no goalies. Not yet, at least. Nordmark or Hermanson? Who do you prefer? Hermanson, but like they're kind of weird opposites of each other. Like Nordmark is smart and sees the ice well, makes good plays often, and he's pretty solid. But Nordmark is or Hermanson is like a higher end offensive, is a higher end offensive guy who I think has a little bit more pace and skill and energy in his game and drives possession a little bit better. I think those two would work really well off of each other on the same line. But Nordmark is more of a, lower, like an adaptive type guy than an active guy. And generally I lean more positively towards the active players rather than the reactive ones, but he's good at that. Right. So it's like they're pretty close on the list for me, but Hermanson is a little bit higher. Well, we've reached the end of the chat questions. We've reached the end here. Oh, yeah. I mean, yes, you're right. Drafting is one way of building a team. And it is arguably the most overrated way of building a team. I love it. I'm the draft guy, and I love being anti-draft. It's really funny. But yeah, I mean, it's true. Like, I think people think a lot about the draft, and it's a good way to do things, but like the players, it's not uncommon amongst people like me to go, all prospects are not in the grand scheme of things very good in terms of NHL level players, right? Most of these guys, there is an extremely long way to go to be NHL difference makers, especially in 2025. It is extraordinarily tough. Okay. So understand that, right? Think about things in baby steps. That's how I always see things, right? Like all I'm doing is just thinking about probabilities and going, where do I want to go that gives me the best odds of beating the odds here? And if my 6th round pick turns into being a guy that I trade for a 3rd round pick, that's a win, right? Because someone else thinks they're intriguing. Sure. Maybe. But at the end of the day, yeah, like it's one way to build a team. I think it can be a very valuable way to build a team if you do it well. But if you don't do it well, like it's not the end of the world, really, And like draft picks are an interesting commodity in the NHL, right? Like on one hand, draft picks in a trade, like if I'm an NHL team and I've got some 34-year-old guy on my team, his contract is expiring and he's kind of a replacement level guy now and whatever, like I'm maybe a playoff team and someone's offering me a 4th or a 5th round pick for him, or somehow someone's offering him a 2nd or 3rd or something, like I do that deal because I would rather reload my team and add an asset for the future that I know, being a draft-oriented person, I can do some damage with. But on the other way around, like if I'm a team that's in a contending position and I have a 3rd or 4th round pick, like, or I have a 1st round pick to parlay into a really good NHL player, I'll probably explore that, because a lot of the time, like the number of times where a 1st round pick gets traded for an established NHL player, I mean, it's not all the time, but teams that do it well, they don't miss that 1st round pick very often, right? But that's not to say that, it's all dependent on the deal that you do, right? So in any case, it's more complicated than it seems. But at the end of the day, I see it as very, it's one part of it, not the biggest part. It's an important one, but, okay, we'll end on this. Thoughts on FC hockey shutting down? It's unfortunate. It's sad. I know that they were facing a lot of, costs, and, I run a pretty lean business here, and it is profitable. What I do is profitable thanks to you all. Like I love the support that we get here. It's really amazing. And any dollar you spend over at scouching.ca is extremely well appreciated and hopefully well rewarded. And I think, to do what FC hockey was doing, it's a really tough business proposition if you aren't just using it as a money sink, like they had a paid subscription thing, but it's like you have to read reports and that's kind of what you're getting to pay for it. And that's, there are people who are probably really interested in that stuff. And I absolutely have nothing bad to say about their quality of analysis. Like when I first got going, FC had some names on there where I'm going, they've moved on to the NHL, I think, in some spots, and they've crossed the Rubicon into the pro world, and they are players that FC was really high on that the NHL wasn't, and it made them look really smart and all this stuff. Like there was a time where I was really intrigued with what they do, and I think I always tracked their rankings and read stuff that their people made and all that stuff, and I know that there were some of them in the chat and all that stuff. So not a bad word at all to say at all. But it's unfortunate. I don't like seeing businesses shut down. But being in that industry, like it's hard, this is not the highest, market. This is not the busiest market to advertise to and to try to pull money from. So, whatever you can get, you got to give them your money's worth. And I know, especially operating a site like that in the way that they were doing it is expensive, and it definitely can add up. I have really gone out of my way to try to keep things relatively lean and straightforward and basic, because it's just easier for me. And I think it doesn't really make that much of a difference on the other side of things. It's a little bit hairy sometimes, but it's okay. And we make it work. But at the end of the day, it's unfortunate. I know Aaron, he and I have spoken a few times, and I have nothing bad to say about him at all. Not that even if I did, I don't think I'd say it at all, but like, no, I mean, Aaron and I talked at one point about me joining over there and being a featured, writer and stuff. And it didn't work out that way. I went to McKean's instead, and Aaron was great about it. And so, yeah, I mean, it's unfortunate. I hope those guys, those people over there find their way into something else. And, look, I mean, the way I see it, doing things yourself in your own way, it's kind of the way the world is going anyway, and if you feel confident and you really love doing this, there are ways, of doing it. It's not the easiest world to do if you want to run a business, really. But I do have a great time every day. I'm having a great time, and it's a lot of fun, especially once I get my Instat account back. Especially once I get that back, we're off and running. We're having a good time. Okay, is the NHL getting height elitist? It never wasn't. It never wasn't. It just is what it is. But no, teams are willing to bet on big guys. It's just the way it goes. It's common in sports. It's not unusual. But anyway, we're going to call it on that. That's just over 2 hours on the dot. So thank you very much for joining me. Hopefully this was as fun for you as it was for me. And if it wasn't, I don't care. I'm kidding. I do care. If you have suggestions on how we may be able to improve our services, please call our support line at 1-800-SCOUCHI. There. And we'll see you on Monday night. We're going to have Tony Ferrari on the show. We're going to have some fun. Assuming I get access to my video service, we're going to have lots more to talk about. Yeah, we just got off the topic of how hard it is to run a business in this enterprise. And if I don't have access to video, then I don't have a business. So knock on wood, pray for me, if that's your thing. We'll see you Monday night. Thank you very much for joining me. Again, if you really want to help us out, you can subscribe over at Scouching.ca, where there's lots of different tiers you can sign up for. Well, 3. But depending on what you want to give, you have access to all kinds of different data tools. Our Discord server. By the way, I'm doing office hours in my Discord server on 2 days a week or so in the afternoons in the Discord server, where you can sort of follow along with the games and watch me work. And well, you don't watch me work, but you watch the work happen. You're not watching my face, because you get enough of that in a week. People say that all the time. So you can do that there at any tier. You'll get access, or if you want to go higher, you can have access to my track data, databases for drafted players, all kinds of fun stuff you can check out over there. So also a private question box if you want to get some private, questions or whatever. That's where you go. So thanks for joining me. We'll see you on Monday night. Tony will be here, and you can all make fun of him for how much he hates everything French. And we'll see you then. All right. Bye.